Good evening, Bahamas. On the broadcast tonight, the Minister administration begins to take shape as the first two cabinet ministers are sworn in. Plus, an international observers group calls for a modernized voting system. And the PACE program opens a permanent home.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news, the weekend edition, and thanks for joining us. I'm Andrew Knowles. The newly elected Free National Movement's first two cabinet ministers received their instruments of appointment yesterday at Government House. Peter Turnquest, now Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, and Carl Bethel, the Attorney General, pledged to uphold the highest of standards in the execution of their duties. Here's Kyle Joaquin.
I, Kevin Peter Turnquest, being appointed minister, do swear that I will, to the best of my judgment, at all times, when so required, freely give my counsel and advice to the Governor General or any other person for the time being lawfully performing the function of that office, for the good management of public affairs of the Bahamas.
Taking his oath of office, the East Grand Bahama MP, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance received his instruments of appointment from Governor General Dame Marguerite Pindling last night in the upper gardens of Government House. Hundreds of family members, friends and supporters came out to witness the occasion. Minister of Finance is a post usually held by the Prime Minister, but Turnquest, who has an extensive financial background, said he will hold the post with integrity and look out for the financial well-being of the country. Also sworn in yesterday, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Carl Bethel.
And that I will not, except with the authority of the Cabinet, and to such extent as may be required for the good management of the affairs of the Bahamas, directly or indirectly reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet, or the nature or contents of any documents communicated to me as Minister, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as such, and that in all things I will be a true and faithful minister.
Prime Minister Dr. Hibet Binis applauding the two new cabinet ministers on their achievements, but also stressing the importance of accountability and transparency in the execution of their jobs.
It is essential that the people's government respects and is seen to respect the rule of law. We cherish and will protect the rights and freedoms of the Bahamian people.
The new Prime Minister has a lot more cabinet appointments to make over the coming days. He told those in attendance yesterday that his cabinet has standards to uphold.
My government will adhere to the Constitution and to the 2010 Financial Administration and Audit Act. We will adhere to other relevant laws and best practices of financial administration. We will also improve the administration of public finances through legislation and regulatory reform and modernization. My government will ensure that the public treasury is utilized for the public good rather than directed toward private interests.
Now, as for what tops the agenda for both of these new ministers, we'll tell you all about it in tomorrow night's newscast. But for now, reporting from the upper gardens of Government House for our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Commonwealth election observers putting the Parliamentary Registration Department under a microscope, recommending modernizing the body that conducts elections in the Bahamas. Our Christina McNeil digs a little deeper into their key findings in this report.
Establishment of an independent election management body is among the key recommendations of the Commonwealth Observer Group, which observed Wednesday's general election and the advance poll on May 3rd. Group Chair Hannah Tete also recommending a modern voting and counting system to safeguard the democratic history of the Bahamas. This comes after Sherlyn Hall was replaced as Parliamentary Commissioner just days before the May 10th general election, following long lines and disorganization at the advance poll.
When the Parliamentary Commissioner, or the person who is in charge of the independent electoral management body, is appointed, that person also has security of tenure. And therefore, once the necessary vetting processes have been undertaken to assure yourselves that this is a person of integrity who you believe is capable of managing an impartial, credible election process, then that person stays in office until the end of his tenure. And in the course of his tenure, he or she would not be removed from office.
Tete says best practices in other Commonwealth countries include independent bodies to manage elections.
Its functions are prescribed by law, and it acts within the remit that it has been granted according to the laws of the country.
Through the establishment of an independent body, Tete says the management of elections would be free from political authority.
The operations of the Parliamentary Registration Department faced a renewed spotlight when it was reported that the contract of the Commissioner lapsed on the 4th of May, 5 days to the elections. The group finds this occurrence highly unusual. We are of the view that it unnecessarily introduced anxiety into a charged electoral environment.
Meanwhile, the Commonwealth Group also had high praises for the Royal Bahamas Police Force and its handling of the advance poll and election, something the group says will be recommended across the Commonwealth.
We were impressed with the high level of technological preparedness of the police force and the manner in which they had considered every single aspect of the electoral process that could be supported by the police. It is a model of best practice that ought to be recommended across the Commonwealth. This observer group intends to do just that.
The Commonwealth Group presented its key findings on Friday. A full report is expected to be released in 2 months. Reporting for our news, I'm Christina McNeil.
Former Progressive Liberal Party MP Philip Galanis said aside from the mood of the electorate ahead of the 2017 general election, polls conducted by the PLP predicted that the party would lose the general election. According to Galanis, while the loss remains a shock for most, they were warned.
When you have a poll that indicates that 40% of the people, 20% indicating that they have not decided how they're going to vote a week before the elections, and another 20% indicating that they don't want to tell you how they're going to vote, but anyone who's not going to tell you how they want to vote, they're essentially telling you, well, I'm not voting for you. And so that's 20% right off the bat. When you add to that another 25, 28% of the people who favor the FNM, that takes it to 48%. I don't know what the final result will be, but I would not be surprised. I would be very, very surprised if it's not more than 50%. I believe that this government, the current FNM administration, will have garnered more than 50% of the vote when all is said and done.
Galanis says it will be interesting to see how the large Minis Parliamentary Caucus governs the country over the next 5 years. Well, still ahead tonight, Mount Moriah's MP-elect talks about plans for his constituency. That story and more when our news returns.